moved here, we realized that everything in town was focused more so on the soldiers during the Battle of Gettysburg, and not much was said about the families who lived in town. So Dell and I decided that we wanted to fix up a house to look like that time period and tell the stories of families in town and what they went through. After looking for several years, we came upon this house. It was abandoned for close to 30 years. And we knew, though, that it was just perfect for what we were looking to do. We didn't know the story of the family who lived in here, but we knew that the house was just perfect. It was in the right location, it was the right size, it was everything that we were looking for. Unfortunately, after being abandoned for 30 years, it was quite a mess. Oh, I think restoring old homes is something that Dell and I have always loved doing. This is the second or third house that we have done here in town, and we both just love it. And you know, I meet people every single day from every state in the Union, from places overseas, and they just are so excited to walk into a town that looks as beautiful as it does and is preserved as well as it does. They always comment on the pride that people here in town have on their buildings, and they're especially excited when they get to walk inside of a house from that time period that looks just like it did. So, you know, to me, this is what people want to see when they come here. As I say, when we bought the house, we were going to tell the stories of all different families. We were a couple of months into the restoration when we started piecing together the story of the family who built this house. No one in town knew the story of this family. And it's just such an amazing story. They built the house just a few months before the war started. They built it with a saloon in the cellar and a bowling alley in the backyard. We also discovered that the house was taken over by Confederate soldiers during the battle. We didn't know any of this while we were still under the restoration, but because the house was pretty sad, there was a leak in the roof and there was a window missing on the second floor, so there was a lot of water damage, which caused the original horsehair plaster to pretty much just flake away. So there was one wall in particular up on the second floor. Unfortunately, we just had to take the wall down because it was a mess. It was the best thing that ever happened. Behind the lath, the studs were about, when a piece of wood was a 2x4, actually it was a 3x5, unlike today, but between the studs, about 3.5 feet high, for about 12 feet long, all these little things had fallen into that wall from the attic for over 100 years, and once they go down there, they go down there. And in there were just amazing things. There were holy cards from St. Francis, there were letters from one family to another, there were toys, lots and lots of toys, candles. There was a bottle of castor oil in there, which I don't think went down by accident. There were clothes. I mean, it was just amazing. And these are little things that would have gone over the edge upstairs in the attic that they were gone. But probably the most amazing thing that we found during the restoration, we discovered that when the Confederates took over the house, they went up into the attic, they knocked holes through the brick wall to shoot their rifles through. And during the restoration, probably one of the things that held us back the longest in moving along in the restoration was putting in an HVAC system, the air conditioning and heating. We'd brought a lot of contractors in. They wanted to build these little boxes in the corners of rooms, and we didn't want to change the rooms. We really wanted this to be as authentic as we possibly could. So we found a couple of fellows who said, well, why don't we hide this stuff underneath the attic floorboards? And we thought, well, that's a great idea. So the very first day they worked, they were up in the attic for hours and hours, and at the end of the day when they left, I went up there just to see what things looked like. They had picked up one floorboard and set it to the side, and with all the things that we had found throughout the house, I'm wondering, you know, I wonder if there's anything underneath the floorboards. So I got down on my hands and knees, I stuck my head in there, and sure enough, there was a bullet. I thought I was going to have a heart attack and die. I got down on my hands and knees again, shined the light under there, and there were 6 Civil War bullets. 3 of them still had the ammunition, the gunpowder packed inside, and there were about 40 or 50 percussion caps. There was the piece of paper that the caps were wrapped in, and here they were sitting under that floorboard for well over 100 years, and all the people that had been in and out of this house, and no one ever knew that they were there. From that, we started to look under all the floorboards. Because there was no insulation, we didn't have to lift up every floorboard, but we would lift up one, shine lights, big lights in both directions, and if we saw anything, we would pull it up. And underneath another floorboard, we found a little tiny girl's shoe, or a little tiny child's shoe. And we found out that there was a custom at this time period when a couple would build a new house. They would take a shoe from a family member, throw it inside the walls of the house during construction, and that was supposed to bring them good luck. The Shriver family had 2 little girls when they built this house. Sadie and Molly were 3 and 5 years old, and the shoe absolutely looks like it would fit a 3 or a 5-year-old child. That was probably my favorite find of the entire house. Restoring an old house is something you either love to do or you don't love to do, because there never is an end. And we have come a long way with this house because it was abandoned for 30 years. It was a disaster. And we have done so much to bring the house back. But boy, we have a long wish list of things that we would still like to do, because it is our desire to make this as accurate to the 1860s. When people walk in the front door here, we want people to feel as though they have stepped back in time and they're standing on the same floorboards that Hetty and George Shriver stood on, and we want them to feel like they are actually back in time with those people. But it is a never-ending thing. And I tell people all the time that ask, why do we hear this story? Why are these people so important? And I think the fact that these people are not important is very important. There were so many families here in town. There are so many stories to tell that in doing research, I would love to share those stories. But it just seems important that if we're going to stand on the same floorboards that the Shriver family stood on, if we're going to put our hands on the same handrail that not only that the Shriver family used, but so did the Confederates that were going up and downstairs to the attic, I just think it's wonderful to hear their story. They are no more important than anybody else in town, but they have an amazing story. Just one of many, many stories here in town.